welcome back into that Sean podcast. And what we're doing now, we're doing some division recap. You know, we don't really do grades per se. We're going to do some rankings and whatnot, but we're just going to give you how we feel about these specific drafts and give you a discussion. So, this episode, we're going into the NFC East. And the team that we're going to start off with is the Philadelphia Eagles. And one thing I'd like to say, and we're going to continue this. All right, so not all, so we're going to have to keep track because not all of what happens for a draft happens on draft day. For example, for Philly it did, but when we get to, let's say, the AFC West, the Raiders had a trade before draft day that affects their draft. And we do have to factor that in. Just want to make sure the rules are clear for the actual particular drafts. Feel me?
Yep.
All right. So, for the Eagles, they did a bunch of trading around. They took Jordan Davis because they traded up to get to number 13 to get Jordan Davis. Then they traded away their other first round pick and a couple other picks to Tennessee to get AJ Brown. So he is actually part of their draft haul. Then we get Cam Jurgens in the second round. Nakobe Dean falls into their lap in the third round. Kyron Johnson in the sixth round, and Grant Calcaterra in the sixth round. So I think this is a very good draft. Jordan Davis, that's a great pick. AJ Brown, being able to trade for AJ Brown, even though you did have to give him the bag. That's an upgrade for your wide receiver core there, so you use draft capital very well. Cam Jurgens, I'm actually not as high on, but I understand why they would take him. Nakobe Dean, as long as he comes back healthy and he can stay healthy, that is a slam dunk pick there. And then, the 6th round picks, you're taking flyers, especially that tight end is a great flyer on some upside athleticism. Any thoughts here, Cat Daddy?
I thought Philadelphia absolutely crushed this draft. I thought they did such a good job with the draft, with the whole weekend, and that includes acquiring A.J. Brown. They began the offseason with 3 first-round picks. Heading into the draft, they had 2, and they only ended up making 1 selection. They used it in a big man up the middle, Jordan Davis, when I thought that was a great move because I included this exact scenario in my mock, so I feel pretty happy about that. But whether Davis starts right away, is especially with Fletcher Cox coming back, is to be determined. But Jordan Davis is going to be the future anchor of this defensive line. So that was a good pick. They were able to use their other first rounder to acquire A.J. Brown. I thought that was a phenomenal move because now you're going to have A.J. Brown who can create, and on the other side you're going to have Devontae Smith who will not be facing double teams on a consistent basis because now there's a second wide receiver threat. And you still factor in that you have Dallas Goedert at tight end, so it's looking like a potentially dangerous offense that Philadelphia has. Quarterback is to be determined. They picked up Cam Jurgens as a replacement for Jason Kelce. They stole Nakobe Dean in the 3rd round. The Eagles got a first-round talent in the 3rd round. It reminds me of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah last year, who had that fall into the 2nd round. And you're thinking,
yeah, but there's a little bit more to this one.
Yeah, there's a little bit more to it. But if Nakobe Dean comes back healthy,
right,
man, this is going to be probably the biggest steal of the draft. And then they capped off their draft with 2 6th-round selections. Overall, it was a really good draft. I just thought they should have looked for a cornerback somewhere. I think that's the piece they were missing.
Biggest steal of the draft went to the Ravens like 4 times.
Yeah.
Now, let's get into, all right, so we're going, what was your favorite pick in this draft and your least favorite pick in this draft? I think we both have the same favorite pick.
Favorite pick is Nakobe Dean, third round. He comes back healthy. He's going to pay dividends and then some. Least favorite pick? It's hard not to like any of their picks, but if I'm forced to choose, then I'm going to say Cam Jurgens. And it's not because I think he's a bad player or he will be a bad player, but just because I thought they should have tried to move around a little bit, maybe get a cornerback instead of getting a center in round 2. But that would be my least favorite pick.
So we're on the same page. Nakobe Dean, I don't mind picking future picks, even if he's not healthy for half the season or even all of the season. This guy is a future stud if he can come back healthy, but if he can stay healthy. Those are a lot of injuries he has there right now. So honestly, they might be prudent for them just to shut him down for the year and let him get healthy.
Just a red shirt.
Right. We're going to be talking about something like that a little bit later. Next up, again, I agree, Cam Jurgens. Again, it's not that I don't like the player. It's just I think this guy's a little bit away. I thought they had other needs that could be addressed, like you said, cornerback could have truly been addressed there. So it's not. It is what it is. All right. Next up, we have the New York Football Giants, who had multiple top 10 picks in this draft. So they took with number 5 overall, Kayvon Thibodeau, with edge out of Oregon. They took Evan Neal, offensive tackle out of Alabama, with the 7th overall pick. In the second round, they took Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver out of Kentucky. In the third round, I'm going to mess up my guy's name. He's from North Carolina. Josh Azedebu, offensive guard out of North Carolina. Then there's Cordell Flop, cornerback out of LSU. Then there's Daniel Bellinger, tight end out of San Diego State in the 4th round. Dane Belton, safety out of Iowa in the 4th round. Micah McFadden, linebacker out of Indiana in the 5th round. DJ Davidson, defensive tackle out of Arizona State in the 5th round. Marcus McKeithen, offensive guard out of North Carolina in the 5th round. And then Darian Beavers, linebacker out of Cincinnati in the 6th round. I'll let you go first.
I thought the Giants were one of the teams who benefited greatly from Trent Baalke selecting Trayvon Walker number 1 overall, because if Jacksonville went the expected route of Aiden Hutchinson, would Kayvon Thibodeau still fall to number 5?
I think he would.
If Jacksonville went offensive line, would Evan Neal still have gone number 7? Because if an offensive tackle goes number 1, we would have done,
that changes everything.
Then the whole entire draft looks different, because would they still take Kayvon Thibodeau number 5 and risk losing an offensive tackle, or do they take an offensive tackle knowing Carolina's right behind them, also with an offensive tackle need, and they hope nobody trades with Carolina for a Kayvon Thibodeau? Either way, Joe Shane came away with 2 studs in the top 7, and that's how you want to start your drafts. Unfortunately for me, that's where the good kind of ended, because you get to round 2 and then you follow up those 2 really good picks with Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm thinking Wan'Dale Robinson, he's, not going to call him a gadget player, but he's one of those guys where you got to manufacture the touch, give him the ball, let him make the play, let him get creative,
undersized,
let him do what he does. And I'm thinking, but didn't the Giants just draft somebody of that same concept the year before with Kadarius Toney? Like, that guy, get him the ball, let him create.
And here's the problem.
Why'd you do that?
Here's the problem. They like to say, well, this is a different regime. All right, then trade him. If you do not like Kadarius Toney, get something out of it. Now, here's the thing. I hear I can't pronounce his name, but the North Carolina guard that they took in the 3rd round. I hear he's good, but here's the problem. I watched North Carolina play. You guys took 2 North Carolina offensive linemen. They were horrendous this past year. So this guy hopefully can develop and hopefully be good, but I'm not banking on it. I mean, the last North Carolina offensive lineman that I got excited about was a bust. His name was Jonathan Cooper. And then what? They took a slot safety in the 3rd who weighs what, $160? Like, I mean, come on. You know, I mean, there's some other I like Micah McFadden. I like Dane Belton. I can see Bellinger playing, but there's much to be desired with this draft.
Yep, it started out really well, and then it just kind of took a nosedive.
All right, that being said, what is your favorite pick, and what is your least favorite pick from this draft?
I really liked the 4th round tight ends, Daniel Bellinger. He was a tight end that I started to like more and more as the draft season went along, and I was hoping he'd be wearing green and gold this season because he's a really good run blocker and can be a sneaky good offensive player, and I was kind of hoping he'd fall to Green Bay. So when the Giants took him, I'm like, respect, you guys. That was a good pick.
Least favorite?
Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, as it stands now, you still got Kadarius Toney on the roster, right? And he's similar in the sense that you got to give him the ball, let him create. He just doesn't have the off-field issues that Kadarius Toney has. So maybe we don't see the full picture. Maybe they are planning to trade Toney, in which case this pick would become better. It would become better. I wouldn't say great because
with the other receivers that were on the board.
Yeah, you had Pickens, you had George Pickens, you had Alec Pierce, you had Sky Moore, you had John Mechie. All of them were still on the board.
Imagine Sky Moore, man. Imagine.
If you would have gotten another wide receiver who could have played opposites Kenny Galladay, I thought that would have been a better pickup.
All right, so my favorite pick is Evan Neal. It would be Kayvon Thibodeau, but like you said, like you've been saying, I do have questions on the work ethic. Does he focus too much on his brand? Nothing wrong with focusing on your brand, but are you too focused on your brand? My luck is he's going to turn out to be another JPP, so we'll see how that goes. But Evan Neal's a worker. This guy is a big behemoth. He's a monster. He's a scary dude, and I think he's going to work well for them. And then Wan'Dale Robinson. It's just this. I mean, that's not only the case. Let's say you wanted this player. I thought the better version of this player went, I think, in the 3rd round. What's it, the 3rd round? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Let's see. Let me see if I can guess who you're talking about.
Well, let's see.
The only 2 wide receivers went in the 3rd rounds. One of them went to the Bears, Bill Jones. The other one was Jalen Tolbert that went to your...
So the better version of this player went in the 4th round.
Well, there are 2 more wide receivers in the 3rd round, David Bell and Danny Gray.
No, he went in the 4th round. He went in the 4th round, in my opinion.
Calvin Austin, the 3rd.
Yeah, exactly. The better version. You agree or disagree? Better version of that player.
Out of those 2, I think I would prefer Wan'Dale.
I would prefer Calvin Austin.
But again, I wouldn't be taking him on day 2.
No. All right. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys, my Dallas Cowboys. So we went Tyler Smith, offensive tackle, guard, offensive lineman out of Tulsa at pick 24. He's already been said that he's going to play left guard his first year. Then in the round 2, we went Sam Williams, edge out of Mississippi. Round 3, Jalen Tolbert, as you said, South Alabama wide receiver. Then round 4, Jake Ferguson, tight end out of Wisconsin. Then round 5 is the gauntlet. We went Matt Walesko, offensive tackle, North Dakota. Deron Bland, cornerback, Fresno State. Damone Clark, linebacker, LSU. John Ridgway, defensive tackle, Arkansas. And then Devin Harper, linebacker out of Oklahoma State. If you don't mind, I will start.
Absolutely.
What's that?
Go right ahead. Absolutely.
I personally love this draft. I personally like drafts like this. You're picking in the back half of the draft. Now, with that said, for what the Cowboys wanted, the draft did not fall fantastic for them, but they still got fantastic players. They decided to bet on athletic upside, on guys who could be coached, guys that they've talked to, that they felt came with the great attitudes, who had just insane athletic profiles. From what I've seen from Tyler Smith, some highlights that I've seen, this guy is mean. I mean, he is mean, dude. Like, he'll get them on the ground and then hit them again. With that said, the 5th round was their money round, and there's guys like Walesko, who has an insane athletic profile. Apparently is the best athletic profile of any offensive lineman in this draft. And then I kind of like stories like the Damone Clark one, as you know. I was if it wasn't for certain things, Damone Clark might have been my number 3 linebacker out of this draft. Some people in some teams had Damone Clark over Nakobe Dean. This is another guy who may need a red shirt year. Unlike Dean, where Dean's injuries are a little different. Damone Clark had spinal fusion surgery because of a herniated disc, but apparently everything is pointing up for him to come back. Stephen Jones said it's going to take about 6 months for him to come back, and he could possibly play this year. Just like Dean, I think he needs a red shirt, but with that said, 2 of the best linebackers in this draft possibly went to the same division. Two beasts.
Didn't the Cowboys draft a linebacker out of LSU last year who took a red shirt year with Jabril Cox?
Well, it wasn't that so Jabril Cox wasn't supposed to. Jabril Cox played. Jabril Cox had that play where he stopped. His big play last year was that play where he stopped Daniel Jones at the goal line, and which unfortunately concussed Daniel Jones. But he tore his ACL. So that's why partly through he tore his ACL, but he's going to be coming back in as a starter. And so, yes, and in 2023, it's going to be looking like 2 LSU linebackers are going to be the top linebackers for the Dallas Cowboys.
Nice.
Oh, and then also Ridgway is another nasty dude, and then Devin Harper is going to be a special teams guy. Apparently he's an insane athletic linebacker, but he's old. Any thoughts here, Cat Daddy?
I like how the Cowboys use their picks on blocking. You had Tyler Smith, and Tyler Smith was my number 5 offensive tackle heading into this draft.
And he went 5.
And the things I liked about him is that he had that nasty streak. He is a mauler in the run game. He doesn't shy away from contact. And I think one of the things I said about him was he is likely going to be a guy who has to start his career on the inside and then take over on the outside. So hearing him start at left guard is no surprise. He'll probably slide to left tackle when Tyron Smith needs to make that transition out. But
right.
I like their picks in the offensive line with Smith and Walesko. I like the tight end pick with Ferguson. I don't think he's going to be a threat to Dalton Schultz. I think Ferguson's there for more of that blocking presence. And it makes me think that Dallas might be trying to do a better job of establishing the ground game as a way to help the passing game. I like the selection of Jalen Tolbert. He'll quickly and easily be able to slide in as wide receiver 3 and work his way up to wide receiver 2. And I like the defensive selections they made. Sam Williams is a good player, and Jerry Jones has never come across a prospect whose off-field concerns have scared him away. So he already has experience of working with people at off-field problems. And
now
this
be
fifth
fair.
round,
To be fair to Sam Williams, his off-field stuff is not current, and he hasn't had anything since. Let's just be clear. It wasn't good stuff when it happened. He apparently maintains his innocence, but I don't speak on that. But my understanding is this happened in 2020 and nothing since. Sorry to cut you off there. That being said, from what I've heard, as a pure pass rusher, he's actually the best pass rusher in this draft.
he's very talented. So if he plays up to that ability, then Dallas gets a great pick in the second round. And the defensive selections they made in the fifth round, I think they're only going to add depth and competition to the roster, which only makes that team better. So I thought they did a really good job.
If he comes back healthy, holy monster. Because where was he on your board? He was fourth, could have been third to me. I thought, because I did like him more than Christian Harris.
He was not in my top 5, but let me see how close he was to my top. I would probably say he was top 7, top 8.
Shame on you, sir. Shame on you. Anyways, what is your favorite pick from this draft, and what is your least favorite? I'll go second.
My favorite pick is the one that you're shaming me for, Damone Clark, 5th round. Similar to Nakobe Dean, he could be an absolute steal when he gets healthy and gets on the field. So, assuming he comes back healthy, which we're hoping he does, this could be a great pick.
It's hard to say least. It's hard.
I know.
It's hard.
if you're giving me, like, I have to select a least favorite.
Devin Harper in the 6th round.
Man.
Or is it John Ridgway? Did you not?
No,
even though I love
like
his
Ridgway.
attitude. What?
I like Ridgway.
But the funniest thing is, if it wasn't for John Ridgway, the athletic profile of the Dallas Cowboys would have been the #1 athletic draft. John Ridgway knocked them down to the 8th.
That's kind of funny, though.
It's hard, ain't it?
It is. They had a really good draft.
Say Walesko then, because Walesko he has to build into that player.
But he was a 5th round pick. Like, it's hard to say someone's bad when they're 5th and later.
But you're not saying they're bad. It's just your least favorite from this draft. It's not bad. It doesn't have to be bad. Just say Jalen Ferguson.
Oh. Then I guess it would be Jake Ferguson, considering that you have Dalton Schultz, you have Blake Jarwin on the roster still. Granted, Dalton's playing on the franchise tag, and Blake Jarwin's probably playing himself off the team. Jake Ferguson's a player I would have liked to have seen on the Packers too. So we'll just say Jake Ferguson.
So my favorite actually is Tyler Smith, and I'm biased. I've heard a little bit of these guys speak. My second favorite would be Damone Clark, but my favorite's Tyler Smith. Just his line when someone asked him about his critics and detractors, he's like, sometimes I don't pay attention in the media. His opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got one. So right there, he had me. He tore up the Dallas media. He's that much personality. So, and then my least favorite is Jake Ferguson, just because, honestly, I think he's going to be a good player, but he's boring. He's a completely boring pick. He's fantastic. He's going to be a fantastic player. I don't have a player here that I don't like. It's just, he's boring. All right, onwards to the Washington Commanders
football team.
All right, so they got Jahan Dotson, pick number 16 in the 1st round. Then Fedarian Mathis in the second round, Brian Robinson in the third round, Percy Butler in the fourth round, Sam Howell and Cole Turner in the fifth round, Chris Paul, no, not the point guard, in the seventh round, and then Christian Holmes in the seventh round. So this draft, I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't like it. I did not like it. You know that I am not as high on Dotson as other people. I really am not. I think he's just a better version of Jalen Reagor. So we'll see how much he can actually do in the NFL. I hope he does make it, even though he is on Washington. I think Fedarian Mathis, how did Fedarian Mathis go over Travis Jones? What is this nonsense? Because they're both basically nose tackles. Brian Robinson is my favorite. I'm ruining the lead there. I'm going to tell you. Brian Robinson is my favorite pick of their whole entire draft, I think. No, he's not. There's a different player I like.
Better be.
But no, he is one. He's high up there. He's going to contribute. Percy Butler's a special teams player. You took him in the fourth round. I mean, cool. Sam Howell will get snaps, and I like Sam Howell a lot. I mean, we'll see how that happens with them. Their offensive line still needs work. And then Cole Turner, serviceable. We'll see. He's a project. And then Chris Paul and Christian Holmes. Those are 7-round picks. How you feel?
There wasn't a whole lot I liked about this Washington football team draft. And to start, it's not that I don't like Jahan Dotson, but I felt he was a huge reach at number 16.
You're not as high on him as I am. It's not about not liking the players. Just, I thought he was a 2nd-round guy.
A huge reach. He was overdrafted by a round.
I actually
a round.
I actually like Jalen Tolbert, the guy the Cowboys picked over him. But that's me. That's me.
Yeah. I mean, if you're thinking if Jahan Dotson was the guy the Washington football team wanted, then they could have traded back with any number of teams.
They did trade back
to get better value. Could have traded back again.
Yes.
And then, 2nd round, they selected Fedarian Mathis, so it's another draft. It's another Alabama defensive tackle on their team. They selected Brian Robinson Jr. in the 3rd round, which I thought was a curious choice, considering they already have Antonio Gibson,
fumbled
J.D. McKissick, Jarrett Patterson. I mean, there were other players selected after Robinson that I would have went with instead.
That's
just me. The bright spots and my favorites selection of this whole draft for them was Sam Howell in the 5th. It's a terrible organization, but he was a great value in the 5th round. It's a very low risk, high reward selection. Sam Howell doesn't have the pressure of being a 1st-round quarterback and the pressure of having to succeed and having it hang over his head on a daily basis. He's a 5th rounder. Everything he does now is just purely out of spite and a chip on his shoulder. So I think it's going to be completely different for him than it would be for Kenny Pickett. But I think that was a great pick by the Redskins.
Holy cow. I just
football team.
A quote. Fedarian Mathis said he was surprised to get picked by them. He said, "Oh man, I was thinking at least 3rd, somewhere in the 3rd or 4th round he thought he was going to go," which he probably should have.
Yep, it's almost they did overdrafting. They did reaching. Only time will tell if it pans out and it works out in their favor.
All right, so you're correct. My favorite pick in this particular draft is Sam Howell out of North Carolina, and my least favorite pick in this draft is Fedarian Mathis out of Alabama. I think they could have gotten him in the 3rd round, if possible, in the 4th round. And I don't know. Even with that, I don't think they needed him. And there's other players that I probably would have picked. That's just how I feel. What about you?
My least favorites was Jahan Dotson in the 1st. I think taking Dotson in the middle of the first was a huge reach. However, we don't know the full plan of the Washington football team. I know wide receivers were coming off the board fast and furious after that Atlanta pick. Treylon Burks was still on the board, who's a wide receiver that I had ranked higher than Dotson. And maybe this is a sign that Washington doesn't have any intention of giving Terry McLaurin an extension or the extension he wants.
I think
and maybe they're just going to find a way to trade.
All right, now to complete this, let's rank. Let's put our drafts and rankings. So no grades, people. We're not putting no letter grades. We're not doing any weirdness like that. But we will rank these drafts. All right, so I'll give mine first. Only with the inclusion of A.J. Brown. If we did not include A.J. Brown, I think Dallas actually would rank number 1 on my list for drafts for this division. But with including A.J. Brown, Philadelphia gets the top spot. Then Dallas gets the next spot. Then, by default, the New York Giants, because they had 2 awesome picks in the first round. And then the Washington Commanders with the following up the rear, because I just didn't feel good about a lot of their picks. Which rankings are you going with?
So, number 1, including the A.J. Brown trade, would be the Philadelphia Eagles. They absolutely knocked that weekend out of the park. Dallas was second. The Giants were third, as much as I don't like their drafts. But a draft I liked even less was the one done by the Washington football team. Man, that organization is a mess.
So, final question for you on this. With the draft in the books currently, and with how free agency shaked out, what is your hierarchy for this division?
So, predicting what it would look like at the end of the year,
yes.
Ranking.
Or no, just your post draft power rankings for this division.
I would say Dallas is still number 1, just because they have a strong defense. They have the offensive unit still intact. They added pieces to the offense that could make the run game better. So I think overall, Dallas did a good job.
And pass.
I think the Philadelphia would be number 2.
Yeah,
the Philadelphia is making moves with the hope of getting another wild card spot, or hoping that somewhere along the line Dallas slips up, because they've added some pieces that can contribute right away.
Before we
in
get
addition to A.J. Brown,
the other 2, one big reason why Dallas is still number 1 in this division?
Why is that?
Rain, Dakota, Prescott.
Dakota Rain.
What's that?
Dakota Rain, yes.
I mean,
yeah,
he's when you have the best quarterback in the division, one of the best in the league. I'm sorry, you're gonna be higher in the rankings. Sorry, Philly, but I mean, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott. It's no competition there. All right, go ahead.
And then third, I'd have to give third to the New York Giants.
Again, I agree.
I think that they're going to do better this year than they did last year. Change in leadership, change in the head coaching. So I think that's going to do very well for them.
But Daniel Jones is still there.
I know. But still better than Mr. Glass, Carson Wentz, and the Washington football team, whose draft made little to no sense. And it makes me think that at some point they'll be getting rid of Terry McLaurin, probably trying to trade him when they see what all of these wide receivers have, the draft capital that these wide receivers have given teams. I wouldn't be surprised to see Washington trade him, and if they do that, then it's really Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel as your top 2 wide receivers. And it doesn't matter if you have Wentz, doesn't matter if you have Howell throwing to him.
Hey, De'Ami Brown.
Hey, Sam Howell gets to reunite with De'Ami Brown.
Yes, he does. Maybe Denami comes on comes with because they're going to be working with each other.
Yep.
All right. Well, I actually second that. I got Dallas still number one because, first of all, I think they do have a better roster, but quarterback than Philly's number two. One thing we didn't talk about that I just want to mention between Dallas and Philly, because a lot of people who, these talking heads on TV who don't know anything about Tyler Smith, which we both do, they're like, why didn't they take Tyler Linderbaum? Or it's Tyler Linderbaum, right? Yeah, they're saying, why didn't they take Tyler Linderbaum? That's who they should have taken. Why didn't they take the center out of Iowa? I'm sorry, Cat Daddy Sean. Be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine Tyler Linderbaum going against Jordan Davis twice a year? That is a bloodbath waiting to happen.
Yeah, you got to double team Jordan Davis in that case.
But you take a
wouldn't
Tyler
have the
Smith,
size.
tell me how exciting it is going to be in the rookie years to have Tyler Smith matched up with Jordan Davis.
That's going to be a far better matchup. You have like power against power.
Exactly.
So that one's going to be much more fun.
Exactly. And that means maybe there was part of that into it. Like, they already like Tyler Smith, and they're like, oh, Philly's trying to bully us? No, thank you. We're going to get a bully ourselves. But I'm just saying, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, Jordan Davis would eat Linderbaum alive.
He would.
And then, of course, after Philly, I have the New York Giants, and I have the Washington team that will not be named. All right, so any more thoughts on the NFC East?
Nope, that's all I got for it.
All right, that's all she wrote, folks. So you can at the Cat Daddy on Instagram and Twitter. If you have any complaints, any praises, you can go to Ush Elliott at Instagram and Twitter. Let us know.